Welcome to Nerds Amalgamated, a podcast that covers the latest events in science, pop culture, and gaming.
I'm the professor, aspiring game developer, sci-fi aficionado, and completely and undeniably a geek trying to take over the world. I'll be breaking down the news from tech to gaming.
I am the DJ, a humble nerd, a big weeb,
and a watcher from the halls of the multiverse.
Just kidding. Anyways, I'll be breaking down all things comics to movies to anime.
Join us and stay hydrated as we quench you with witty banter, unintentionally hilarious hot takes, and trivia more fun than a night at the pub, courtesy of Nerds Amalgamated.
And we're live with another episode of Nerds Amalgamated. How's it going, Professor?
I'm so glad you finally stopped doing that.
What was that? I can't hear you. You kind of cut off there.
You stopped going, yeah! See, my microphone hates it so much it refuses to listen.
When you do it, Professor, it sounds like it sounds like that character from Family Guy that crashes through the building. It says, "Oh yeah."
No clue.
What
I
did you
don't
get
watch Family Guy.
So what did you get up to, Professor?
Mini golf.
Oh, mini golf, eh? Did you go any hole-in-ones?
Yeah, I got one.
Oh, nice. I did I went axe throwing, and I also went also saw the Game Awards this week. Man, axe throwing was fun. Although I will say this, it takes a lot of effort just to throw an axe properly, especially with the follow through.
Yeah, otherwise it just spins.
Yeah. I think I posted a video on the chat on the group chat with my performance on throwing that axe. It was like I did it in the form of like Counter-Strike.
I had no idea they were throwing axes in Counter-Strike.
No, but you know, like when you switch the weapons, it's like switch weapon. That aesthetic.
Right. That still makes no sense to me.
What else? Yeah, the Game Awards. Yeah, I was it was fun, but at the same time I was salty about the game that won the best game of the year. Stupid Astrobot. Yeah, and I know, Professor, you're gonna say, "Oh, your favorite game didn't win. Get over it."
Yep.
Yeah, I know. My favorite game didn't win it, but it's Astrobot, a PS5 exclusive. A PS5 exclusive, damn it!
Exclusive games can still be good. That's not the reason I hate exclusives.
You hate it for different reasons.
Yes, I hate them because I despise the idea of locking down games on one platform.
Yeah, and this is why I wanted Black Myth Wukong to win it. And it
Well,
would have
it
been
didn't, so get over it.
well, fair. But at least it did win a cup. But at least Black Myth did win Best Action Game and People's Choice Awards. But yeah, fair enough. But aside from whoever won the awards and stuff, aside from the fact that there were awards won, the reveals were also good as well. Like we had a Witcher reveal, which was interesting. A new Witcher game with Ciri as the main character. We have a new game from Naughty Dog as well called Intergalactic.
See, this is why I don't watch the Game Awards.
I know.
Because I have to sit through you telling me everything that happened afterwards.
Fair enough. But yeah, there were a lot more games. But I was going to segue to our first topic. So our first topic is about the potential of India entering into the game development world.
Well, they're not really entering into it. There's an Indian game industry that's been around for a few decades, just like everywhere else. But it's only in the last 5 or 6 years that they've started to really blow up as a marketplace.
Okay. What game especially has been leading the charge?
Specifically, PUBG Mobile.
Okay.
It came out at that perfect time where it was a hit game at the right time in the right place when smartphones were becoming ubiquitous and everyone was playing it. And it was different to the usual casual gaming that gets done on mobiles. So PUBG Mobile isn't very popular outside India, but it is huge in.
Yeah, I remember that it used to be really, really huge in India to the point where they had a ban.
Yeah, they were talking about that. I don't know if they did follow through.
It was banned, and the reason for it was because this was according to one of the ministers. It was to safeguard the internet and the rights of the citizens, which
Yeah, politicians speak.
uh-huh. That's true. That's true. But then he goes on to further explain, we have banned the PUBG because it is our duty to all of you to keep the internet safe, to keep the internet trusted. While we love innovation, we love what youngsters all over the world are doing, but we also have an obligation to make sure that things are not bad, things are not unsafe, and things are not mistrusted. And he adds by saying, so there are aspects which we will intervene and say that this is not good, and we will lay out transparently the criteria of what it's not good. And we want to make sure that for 120 crore Indians, the internet is always safe and trusted.
Yeah, anyway, politics aside, it was around this time that smartphones became cheap enough that everyone had one. Before that, there were people playing games, but because you had to buy a PC and a console, and they were out of reach for most people,
Mm.
then piracy was a huge thing, Southeast Asia at the time. I remember my dad going on a trip overseas once and coming back with some movies that in hindsight were definitely pirated. I don't remember where he went. It was somewhere in Asia.
Mm.
And we never actually watched them because they were all in whatever the local language was, and we couldn't figure out how to change them to English.
And the subtitling must have been a nightmare. Just going, what the hell is this subtitles?
So, since everyone has a phone,
Mm.
everyone can play games on their phone.
Yeah. And India is one of the booming economies in the world.
Yeah,
So
it's a massive, previously untapped economy. And now, what's this, 6 years later? Nico Partners predict the Indian games market will cross the $1 billion revenue mark next year.
oh shit, 1 billion.
Yep. And Illuminati report forecasts the revenue to hit 9.2 billion by financial year 2029. So that is just a rocket.
And with that number, with that number, what's going to be interesting is the number of jobs you're going to see grow from that number.
Well, that depends on whether India is able to grow their own domestic industry or if they just play Western games.
And then not to mention as well, like it's like mobile gaming as well. Like you know how we always have that. There's always that argument: is mobile gaming actual gaming? You know how we used to have it.
Yeah.
Like, and now we're seeing like mobile gaming is a thing, just not in the West, unfortunately.
Well, it is in the West, but it's a very different market.
Yeah,
In the West, it's all about casual games like Candy Crush.
I understand that point. What I'm trying to say is it's like when you go to a mobile game in Asia, for example, people love it, and when you go in a mobile game in the West, it's like it's just people hate it. You know, that's the
Yeah,
general
because they're
sentiment.
different markets.
Hmm.
India, everyone plays mobile games because people can't afford PCs or consoles.
Yeah, yeah,
The rest of the world, well, the West, not the rest of the world, because there's still plenty of countries who can't afford consoles.
yeah,
But in the West, mobile gaming took off, but as an entirely different market where it's mostly dominated by middle aged women playing games like Candy Crush.
yeah,
And apparently, part of the reason the market in India has been able to grow so large is because of the Unified Payments Interface, which was introduced in 2016 and is basically a interface for making payments in apps directly from your bank account.
Oh, wait, isn't that just direct debit with a different name?
Yeah, but it simplifies it. It really streamlines the process.
Hmm.
So instead of having to pull out your credit card and type in the 10 digits and the expiry, the CVV, and all that,
Yeah.
you can just do it from your phone. A bit like, have you ever used Google Pay on your phone to make a payment in an app?
Yes.
A bit like that, but
Hmm.
even more tightly linked to your bank account.
But there has to, but with a system like that, there has to be people just exploiting that system, wouldn't there?
I haven't heard of anyone doing that, but I'm not an expert on Indian banking.
Fair enough. Here, it's I'm just looking at the Wikipedia article here. They said this digital revolution brought UPI has led to significant influx of scams and fraudulent activities. As per RBI, which is the Reserve Bank of India's annual report in 2023 to 2024, 6,659 digital frauds, card/internet, were reported among 276 crore. So that is so in millions, 276 crore would be 276 million dollars in a sense.
Okay, but what is that per capita compared to what happens in the rest of the world?
That I do not know, sadly.
Yeah, it's hard to make a comparison when we don't have data for the rest of the world.
Makes sense, yeah. But that's a
So,
oh, sorry.
so anyway, it's not like a lot of this money that's being made is going to Indian developers currently. So, what remains to be seen is whether India can turn this into a large domestic games industry, which I would be all for. Like, more people making games is just better.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And India has the potential to do it. I mean, they're doing really well in the movie industry. So this could be the next big thing.
Yeah, Bollywood games.
Oh, I could totally see it. Imagine RRR the game. That'd be fun.
Yeah, and just think of every random clip from a Bollywood movie you've seen that makes no sense turned into a game.
Oh! I just thought. Imagine unpausable cutscenes of Indian of a dance number.
Oh no. No, this was a mistake. Yeah, but there's like how Bollywood is a thing.
Hmm.
The local Indian, the influence of Indian culture on Bollywood would be similar to the influence of Indian culture on games.
Hmm.
So you're going to get a lot of unique stuff coming out of Bolly games, whatever you want to call it.
Oh shit! Professor, if it comes out Bolly games, you should trademark it.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to come up with a better term for it than that.
I all right, we shall see. We shall see. Also, what's going to be interesting? I've also noticed if they come out with a certain like Bolly game, like it's going to be it's going to it has to resonate with the majority of the population of India. Like look at Black Myth Wukong and how the story of that game, it was a journey to the west and how it resonated with people in China, for example. The whole population of China, for example. You're gonna have to find that one game that resonates with the majority of the Indian population.
Well, I wonder if it can.
Hmm.
Because India is a huge market, but it is also culturally, I think, a couple of different markets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've got stuff like the caste system where you don't interact with people outside your caste as much as you do
Hmm.
with people in your caste. And I
It's an
wonder if games that come out in India by Indians would cater to particular social groups rather than to all of India as a whole. Because I think Black Myth Wukong, China comes across as a very homogenous society. So, whereas India, I know there's a tension between the different classes and castes and
even
the
if
different races.
it's the caste system is an antiquated system. I mean, yeah,
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 it's antiquated and it makes no sense looking at it from a modern perspective. But it's a cultural touch point that India hasn't gotten over yet. And I really don't know enough about the Indian movie studios to know, but I do think that it would be hard to cater to the entire Indian population.
yeah. And I'm just looking at one quote here. So Indian quote, Indian gamers' tastes are varied. Anime is hugely popular across the nation. So naturally Genshin Impact and Mio's other titles have been a hit. On the other hand, Japanese RPGs are less popular, and genre flagship Final Fantasy didn't really take off in India until it moved to real-time combat. Cricket video games are also massive, even more so than in Australia, according to one panelist in the India Game Developers Conference 2024.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Cricket is massive in India.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, you think it's big in Australia or England. India's on an entirely different level with cricket.
Yeah, but the other big market is the real money gaming. So like casino types,
Yeah,
they
which
still
is why
dominate.
these games all have microtransactions.
Yeah, and that's interesting because if India was to come into the was to build their own ecostructure for gaming and stuff, they would have to find the funding and the investors.
Wow, it's almost like you're reading the article I'm sourcing from in real time. Yes,
Touche.
the local devs have noted that it's difficult to get funding because the investors don't get games, which makes sense as a generational thing. India hasn't had 40 years of games to fall back on like the West has. It's gaming has only really taken off massively in the past, the past decade.
Yeah, and but here's the thing though, like even though they don't have that experience, they have the know-how in terms of the theoretical knowledge with the IT boom with India experiencing that back in the day. Well, still
Yeah,
do.
the IT boom in India though is again a thing that would be limited to people who are more well off
Mm.
because computers
Yeah,
are expensive.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
But you're right that the IT boom means that there are a lot of programmers in India. But if they don't know how to make a game, then they're basically starting from scratch unless they bring in foreign help. Because currently there's no major studios in India that actually develop games in India.
Hmm. Okay.
The studios that do have Indian operations, it's mostly so that they can meet compliance with Indian laws and also for cheap outsourced labor, like for testing.
So basically, it's exploitative marketing.
It's the same as outsourcing any job to India. There's a lot of people there, and having a lower wage, like a lower sorry, I've forgotten the term I'm looking for. A lower cost of living
Yeah.
means that, and a lower standard of living means that you can hire people cheaply to do jobs for a fraction of what you would have to pay someone in Australia to do. Which is why a lot of companies outsource their IT and their telemarketers and stuff like that. But that's all fairly unskilled labor when
Mm.
they're outsourced. So when you release a game in India, you've got to make sure that you target the correct market segment. You localize the prices because with the cost of living in India being so different from, say, Australia or the US, you need to localize the prices to make sure that people can actually afford what you're selling. Then you've got to localize. So this article says there's 23 languages spoken in India.
Holy shit. That's a lot of languages.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I think it's really hard to target India as a country
And the
because there's 23 languages, yes, but then there's also going to be each cultural divide among each social group in India.
and it's not just that. Like I've also there's another interesting thing this article posted out. It's the talent pipeline as the cycle posts. Like there's no little to no university or colleges that offer game specific courses.
Yeah, it's hard to academically.
Hmm.
It's hard to have a online, sorry, not an online, a university that teaches something where there's no industry for it.
And it's not just that; it's also that they you have in order for that to happen, in order for courses to appear, you need to change you need to change the attitudes of the culture. For example, like some generations they have the whole like, oh, you must there's no money in making games or doing stuff. That's the old. I think the old mentality should die, and yeah, they should embrace the fact that there are other sources of work.
Okay, so yeah, going to be difficult to build up an industry from scratch in India.
Without changing the culture and a lot of things, and that's a
Yeah.
real uphill battle.
Yeah, I think they'd be best off doing what Australia tried to do to build the games industry, which was have subsidies and encouragement for large international developers to move to Australia. Because then those developers train people, and those people who are trained go on to become indie developers. And that's basically where a lot of our indies came from. There was I don't remember the name now, but the subsidy for game developers that attracted the big companies was ended a bit more than a decade ago now. And a lot of those developers went on to become indies and are part of Australia's current indie boom.
You mean you mean the game grants, or am I talking? Are you
Uh,
thinking of a different one?
no, I think I'm thinking of a different one
Okay,
because we currently have games grants from Screen Queensland and the other states have their own,
yeah.
but there used to be a national one.
Yeah, the closest thing I can find is the Games Production Fund. That's about it. That's from Screen Queens. That's from Screen Australia.
Okay.
But yeah, but then wouldn't that be so? Wouldn't that kind of be a brain drain in a sense, though?
No, you're keeping the talent in Australia.
Okay.
A
Okay.
brain drain would be if the developers had to go overseas to pick up us. Because if you if you want to be a game developer and it's not offered in Australia, then you must go overseas. And then while you come back, there's no industry in Australia for you.
Yeah. As I said earlier, I think India's got the right parts to build this. They just need something that could connect it all together.
Yeah.
Like it has potential. I will
Yeah, there's the potential there.
yeah, but the execution, it's gonna be it's gonna take a while for the execution to come together.
Yeah, you can't build a games industry overnight.
Yeah, but at least it's at least they will think of something to make the Indian games industry more well known than well, not more well known, as well known as the Bollywood industry. That's I'll put it as.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
We'll have to wait and see.
yep. Yep. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Gemma Atherton has been coming out disagreeing the idea of a gender bent 007. So for those who haven't, for those who do not know who Gemma Atherton is, she is famous for her role in Quantum of Solace as Agent Strawberry Fields. Saying that she disagrees with the idea of a female James Bond, and she compared it to having Mary Poppins played by a man, suggesting such a change would alter the essence of the character. She's also emphasized the importance of creating original empowering roles for women instead of reimagining iconic male characters.
Well, to be fair, you couldn't gender swap Mary Poppins because who would hire a male nanny?
In current times, maybe in current times, maybe. But yes, you are right. Who would hire a male nanny in those days?
And if they were going to gender swap Mary Poppins, then I'd want them to just swap the characters of Mary Poppins and the chimney sweep. So
Yeah.
instead of having a prim and proper nanny, the kids are running around town with with a Cockney guy. And the Cockney guy's like, "All right, here's your medicine, governor."
Ah, oh, that would be so brain jarringly cringe.
Yeah,
Oh Jesus!
that's what makes it hilarious.
Oh, can you imagine the Cockney guy saying chin chimney?
No, it would be the other way round. There'd
Oh
be a
yeah,
prim and proper,
a prim a prim
yeah,
and
prim
pop.
and proper chimney sweep. Oh
Oh,
my! I seem to have gotten some soot on my costume.
but by the way, this is not just the only person. She's not the only person that made the same statement. Anna de Armas also pushed back on the concept of a gender swap James Bond, stating there's no need for a female Bond. There shouldn't be any need to steal someone's idea, to take over. This is the actress continued. This is novel and leads into this James Bond world and this fantasy of that universe where he's at. What I like is the female roles in the James Bond, even though Bond would continue to be a man, are brought to life in a different way. That they're a more substantial part in recognition. That's what I think it's more interesting than flipping things. I mean, we've seen. Okay, I agree with her in terms of we've seen, like, for example, Moneypenny in the recent Bond movies. She played, instead of being the usual secretary behind the desk doing filing and typewriting, we've seen Moneypenny. God, I hate saying that name too many times. We've seen Moneypenny be more active in the field, like Skyfall, for example, when she was with a sniper rifle.
Yeah, she was a full-on agent in Skyfall.
Yeah,
So maybe for James Bond specifically, they could take Moneypenny and do a series of movies about her, and then have her get injured or something and go to her desk job if they wanted to go back to being a secretary. I don't know. I admit I've missed the last couple of James Bond movies,
yeah,
so I don't know if they do anything like that.
yeah. But what do you think of that general idea, though? Like a whole general idea of gender swapping characters.
Well, it can be done well. It can also be done terribly. And I think you hear a lot of people complaining about it, but they also focus on the ones where it's done terribly.
Yeah.
The ones where it's done well are the ones where, without intimate knowledge of the source material, you wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing was, like, even if you flip it into a female James Bond, like, the question is going to be, do you think the audience are going to are ready to embrace that idea, or are they going to hate that idea?
I think it really just depends on how well it's done.
Yeah.
Like Sigourney Weaver in
Mm.
Alien. I know she was originally cast in Alien. It's not really gender swap because there was no original material like that was released. Initially, they weren't even considering having a woman play Ripley, but Sigourney Weaver blew them away, and it's because they were open to the idea of it that Sigourney Weaver was able to blow them away and become such a iconic character.
Yeah, and there are qualities with Sigourney Weaver in Alien that made her iconic, and I think that's and you look at the James Bond actors, and they've got qualities that make James Bond unique in the male actors, and I think it's going to be difficult to adapt for a female version.
Why do you think that?
I mean, look at, like, when you think of James Bond, for example, what do you think of James Bond as?
An alcoholic, an alcoholic playboy.
Yeah. Okay. Can you okay? I would say a suave, sophisticated alcoholic playboy. Yes, sure.
Well, he's less suave and sophisticated in these,
Okay.
but he's also a lot less creepy in some of the movies.
Yeah.
Because there are times in the old James Bond movies where the love interest scene is really uncomfortable.
Now, can you imagine a female James Bond doing that, though?
Going around getting drunk, picking up guys. Yeah. I could see a female James Bond.
See, that's going to be interesting. Like, I mean, you yourself, you could see it, but I don't know. There are a couple of traditionalists that will go, "Ooh, really?" I mean, the last time they tried a female James Bond, it was the final one, the time when Danny Craig did the final James Bond, and the way they covered it was basically 007 is just a code name, anyone can take it, but no one can take the James Bond name, essentially.
Yeah, which is funny because they've flip-flopped on that a bit.
Mm.
Some of the older movies imply that James Bond is the code name.
Ah, yeah.
And then some of them are very explicit that they're all James Bond, even though he changes his face. Like, there's a couple of them where he gets married, they change the actor, and in the next movie they have the new actor visiting the grave of his wife.
I remember that one. That was weird. Yeah, that was the only one that Australian acted, didn't it? As well.
I don't remember.
The Spy Who Loved Me. It was yeah, the on Her Majesty's Secret Service. That's the one. The one with Peter Lazenby as James Bond.
So I think it really comes down to execution.
Yeah, and also like yeah, you're right. It does come down to execution and whether whether this they could benefit from gender swapping protagonists or is it going to be a case by case basis? It
It's a
remains to
case
see.
by case basis.
It's a case by case basis. Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
some characters would be really hard to execute with gender swapped.
Hmm.
Some are definitely easier than others.
Hmm.
And then it comes down to the execution and how well the actors and writers come together.
Yeah. Okay, here's a question for you though. If they do a gender swap if they do a gender swap of James Bond, do you think we will see the first Bond man?
Yeah, and I have to wonder if they did gender swap James Bond,
Uh-huh.
they'd probably go for a Bond man or a Bond guy instead of a Bond girl.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And my next question would be, how would they execute that? Like when they did the female Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
and they had Channing Tatum, I
Oh, no,
think,
no, Chris Hemsworth. Yeah.
Chris Hemsworth, playing a ditzy blonde guy. Like traditionally, the Bond girls have been damsels in distress. So
I
would
wouldn't
they
say
do that, or would they make him more competent, like they've been making some of the more recent Bond girls more competent?
I wouldn't say the Bond girls were damsels in distress per se. That's a bit of a stretch. Like some of them were like, so like, I think most of them were like real tough women, like
Oh,
Halle
it
Berry.
really depends on the story.
Yeah, yeah, like Halle Berry as a Bond girl. Like she was great. She was cool and tough too. But yeah, you're right. How would they portraying a Bond guy? If they do a female swapped Bond girl, that would be a interesting portrayal.
Yeah.
Well, at least at least those guys will not be as crafty as the next topic, where a bunch of high school students have developed an antibiotic using guess what? Goose feces.
Oh boy.
Terrible segue.
Just get yeah. Like, so can you imagine getting a cut and just rubbing goose shit?
Wouldn't that make the wound infected,
Yes, it would.
resulting in amputation and possible death?
Yes, it would. There's a whole process in the paper that we've linked about how they process it and isolate the antibiotic.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so there was a university partnership with a Boys and Girls Club of Chicago called the Chicago Antibiotic Discovery Lab. And that was to basically take middle school students and bring them into the lab and help encourage them to become scientists.
Oh yeah.
So one cohort were working on it, and a student isolated a Pseudomonas idahoensis bacterium from a goose feces sample that produced a cyclic lipodepsipeptide. I promise these are real words. And
Yep.
that cyclic lipodepsipeptide is characterized as orphamide N.
Yeah, that's a. And for those who do not
And
know what, oh, sorry.
no, go on.
I was gonna say, it's a Orphamide End is sounds like a powerful name.
Yeah. I don't know why we've been saying it's an antibiotic though, because it's an antibiotic lab, but it's actually an anti-cancer drug.
Ah.
So we've been misleading. They discovered that it's orphamide N is cytotoxic against melanoma and ovarian cancer cells.
Okay, interesting. So, how long we reckon before Banana Boat gets wind of this and make commercials out of that?
That feels completely out of nowhere to me. What do you want about?
I'm just saying, how long before sunscreen companies come in and take this idea and make it into sunscreens?
Yeah, because it melanoma, is that why?
Yep.
Right. Well, it wouldn't be useful unless you've got melanoma, so they wouldn't put it in sunscreen. and it has to be a specific kind of melanoma.
Ah, okay.
Specifically, according to the paper, it has to be melanoma with an IC50 value of 11.06. I think that's nanomoles. I don't know all of these abbreviations off the top of my head.
So much science nomenclature.
Yeah, it's a dense paper.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's really interesting that this was discovered by school kids working in partnership with a lab, because it's not just about reaching out to the community and having, encouraging students to want to become scientists. I think it would also help instill trust in science,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
something that we all need a bit more, given the last few years of people coming up with their own alternative medicines. You know what we call alternative medicine that works? Medicine.
Yeah. And and that's going to be interesting. Like, it'll be interesting seeing how this type of program will inspire long-term interest among young participants. That's going to be interesting. Like, yes, you have made the first medicine. This will inspire them to take STEM fields.
Yeah,
The one big question we should ask is: could we see similar collaborative models be implemented on a larger scale to make more communities be involved in scientific research? If this was a success, given the success of this,
I don't see why not.
I agree. That's true. But then, like you said, there's a big push with alternative medicine, so there's going to be a very big clash of
Yeah,
information. So yeah, and I think citizen science could help break down the barriers between science and the public in terms of teaching the public to the ways of science, essentially in a more not in a dense level, but in a in a much more simpler level.
yeah, I think a lot of the pushback against effective medicine and science is that people don't understand how it works and how it's tested. Like, we all know that the scientific process, or at least I hope we do, but that's a terrible sentence because we don't all know.
Nah.
A lot of people didn't do science in high school, would learn things like the scientific method, and didn't go on to do science at university.
Yeah, it also comes down to science is a very broad topic as well. So like one science is might be totally different to another science. Like earth science is totally different to medical science, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, with this sort of success, there should be more outreach programs to deal with the barrier.
absolutely.
Yeah. And on that note, we'll take a small break and go to our shoutouts and our wacky move. So, on to our shoutouts. On the 13th of December 1972, the Apollo program, Eugene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt began the third and final extravehicular activity, or moonwalk, of Apollo 17. To date, they were the last humans to set foot on the moon. This began at 5:25 p.m. EST on December 13th. Cernan and Schmidt rode the rover northeast of the landing site, exploring the base of the North Massif and the sculpted hills. The crew collected 66 kilos of lunar sample and took another 9 gravimeter measurements. Schmidt had seen a fine-grained rock unusual for that vicinity earlier in the mission, and had stood on its edge before closing out the EVA. He went and got it. Subsequently designated sample 70215, it was at 17.7 pounds, which is 8 kilos, the largest rock brought back by Apollo 17. A small piece of it is on the Smithsonian, one of the few rocks from the moon that the public may touch. And they never got sick from it? Wait, don't people get sick from touching space material?
Only in bad movies.
Ah, damn.
The moon is sterile. It's
Ah,
outside the Van Allen belt, I think, is the belt of radiation around the Earth. Basically, the Earth's magnetic field blocks a lot of radiation. There's a whole bunch of other things that go on, but the radiation is terrible for life and will kill you
ooh,
slowly and painfully. So the moon is basically sterile.
Uh-huh. Ah, okay. So before concluding the moonwalk, the crew collected a Brescia rock dedicating it to the nations of Earth, 70 of which were represented by students touring the US and present in Mission Control Center in Houston, Texas at the time. Portions of this sample, known as the Friendship Rock, were subsequently distributed to the to the nations represented by the students, and they were all made into rings and were given to the rings of men. Sorry, I had to put.
Right.
You know that reference, don't you?
I do. You're trying to do a Lord of the Rings reference.
I know, I know. A plaque located at the LM commemorating the achievements made during the Apollo program was then unveiled. It's Cernan remarked, "I'm on the surface, and I take man's last step from the surface back home for some time to come. But we believe not too long into the future. I would like to just say what I believe history will record, that America's challenge of today has forged man's destiny of tomorrow. And as we leave the moon at Taurus Lithro, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind. Godspeed, the crew of Apollo 17."
Yeah, like, how long has it been now?
Yeah, too many years.
Yeah.
So the final lunar excursion had the duration of 7 hours and 15 minutes. Following the closure of the LM hatch and repressurization of the LM cabin, Stern and Schmidt removed their spacesuit and reconfigured the cabin for the final rest period on the lunar surface. So, Professor, what's our messed up moment in nerddom this week?
Have you ever heard of Laboratory 1?
No.
What about Laboratory 12?
No?
Camera.
No. Not, still nothing.
They're all different names for the same labs in Russia.
Oh boy.
The poison labs of the Soviet secret services. Their job was to develop a poison that would be tasteless, odorless, and undetectable post-mortem.
Oh shit.
So they would take political prisoners from the gulag and pretend they were giving them medicine and give them poison and see what happened.
Ah, god damn.
Yeah. In the end, they settled on a preparation known as C2 or K2, which is carbylamine choline chloride, which would kill you within 15 minutes.
God damn. Yeah, I'm not gonna catch him on a bad day. No.
Yeah, there are like 10 known victims who were murdered outside Russia, poison developed by the poison labs.
Ugh.
And apparently, Gary Kasparov only drinks bottled water and food prepared by his bodyguards to make sure no one can poison him.
Oh damn.
Gary Kasparov being the chess champion.
Okay.
He's also a vocal Putin opponent.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to mess with those guys ever. I don't want to mess with those guys.
Oh, you don't want to mess with the Soviet Secret Service at all.
Nope.
They'll be perfectly happy either killing you or making you disappear and erasing you from photos.
Also, I got a question. Isn't I thought human experimentation was deemed unethical / illegal as well.
It is, but if you dehumanize your opponents enough, you can do whatever you want to them.
Oh damn. Yeah, so I just hope I don't I don't oh, and still going. Oh damn.
Yeah, it's likely that there is still a poison lab running in Russia. There's probably one running in the US as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Anyways, on that on that messed up note, onto a wacky movie. On the 13th of December 1951, the day the Earth stood still premiered in the UK. It starred Michael Rennie and Patricia Neal, and the plot summary goes like this. An alien lands and tells people of Earth that they must live peacefully or be destroyed as a danger to other planets. The screenplay was written by Edmund H. North, based on the 1940 science fiction short story Farewell to the Master by Harry Bates. The film score was composed by Bernard Herrmann. You've ever seen that movie?
I've seen the remake. It
When
was
you,
a long time ago. I don't remember much.
yeah, it was it was an interesting remake with Keanu Reeves as the alien. Producer Julian Blaustein originally set out to make a film under the working title Farewell to the Master and Journey to the World, which illustrated the fear and suspicion that characterized the early Cold War and atomic age. He reviewed more than 200 science fiction short stories and novels in search of a storyline that could be used because this film genre was well suited for a metaphorical discussion of such grave issues. The robot Gort was played by Locke Martin, who worked as an usher at Grauman's Chinese Theatre and stood 7 feet and 7 inches tall. Not accustomed to a confining heat-inducing costume, he worked carefully wearing the two oversized laced-up foam neoprene suits for the illusion of a seamless metallic Gort. Wise decided Martin's on-screen shooting time would be limited to half-hour intervals, so Martin would be, with his generally weak constitution, would face no more than a minor discomfort. These segments, in turn, were then edited together into the film's final print. The army refused to cooperate after reading the script. The studio then approached the National Guard, who had no qualms about seeing the army depicted in a less than flattering light and gladly offered their cooperation. That's hilarious.
Yep.
The scene of the large crowd fleeing the saucer area after Gord appeared in all too obviously sped up film, making the shot look unnatural. The reason for the sped up film effect was explained by director Robert Weiss in an interview. It seemed that, despite much pleading and cajoling from him, the crowd of inexperienced extras portraying the saucer onlookers simply wouldn't move away from the saucers quickly enough to look panicky and convincing. After several takes, Weiss finally had to move on with filming and reluctantly allowed the scene to be sped up in post-production, knowing that the end result would probably look strange. And for the film's iconic line, Klaatu Barada Nikto, it has been used repeatedly in fiction and popular culture, so much so that the Robot Hall of Fame described it as, quote, one of the famous commands in science fiction. There's no official translation of the phrase, and a few notable attempts have been made to determine the phrase's meaning. One speculation is part of it is a failsafe featured using used during diplomatic mission, where Gort's deadly force can be deactivated in an event that the robot is undesirably triggered into a defensive posture. Edmund H. North wrote that the day the Earth stood still also created the alien language. Which I just said. The official spelling from the phrase came directly from the script and provides insight to the proper pronunciation. Skoll observed that the theme has evolved into a staple of science fiction that the machines charged with protecting us from ourselves will misuse and abuse their powers. Yeah, that was that was an interesting take with the remake as well, like how a defensive robot can go nuts.
Yeah, I think that's been covered a lot, though.
Yeah, it's been covered a lot, and a lot of people tend to mess up that phrasing. So, like for example, the actress had a problem speaking the phrase, though she was proud of the film overall. And she quotes, I do think that this is the best science fiction film ever made. Although I admit I sometimes had a difficult time keeping a straight face. Michael would patiently watch me bite my lips to avoid giggling and ask, with true British reserve, is this the way you intend to play it? That's one way of saying it if you're one of the actors.
Yep.
Anyways, so that's all we have for this week. Where can they find us, Professor?
Everywhere, but especially check out our new TikTok.
Ah, yes, TikTok.
Yes, we've given into the brain rot.
Oh yeah. Give it time, and we'll be spied on by by government forces.
Oh, they're already doing that.
Damn. Anyway, stay happy, stay nerdy. See you guys.
Look after yourself, stay hydrated, and we'll see you next time.